Hi everyone, Dave Henson, the slide presentation man here, and I'm here today with Andonella Thompson. Now, Andonella came on one of my workshops recently, a workshop I ran for the Training Designers Club, and we covered a lot about animation, but she came back to me with a question after the workshop, and I am going to attempt to answer that question now. So welcome, Andonella.
Thank you, David.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and I have the PowerPoint screen open here. And so the idea, what Andonella wanted to do was to, as you can see from this graphic at the bottom, was to animate this smiling face, bouncing in off from the left, bouncing down, and then bouncing back up to the right again. So, okay, so the first thing, obviously, is if you're going to animate something, you need to make sure that you've isolated it. So the first thing I would do is duplicate, Control D to duplicate that graphic. And then I'll go up to picture format on this first graphic, crop, and just crop out these three balls on the left-hand side. So you've got the three static balls or faces or whatever they are on the left. And then what I would do is I would crop this image. I'm going to just crop it roughly to start off with, crop it down. And then I'm going to zoom in on that image. I'm going to zoom into 400%. And I'm going to crop it again now. So we crop right into the, oops, grab hold of the handle, crop right into the edge of that circle around the face there. And then I'm going to crop it again. This time I'm going to crop it to a shape. I'm going to crop it to a circle. Now, that means that if I place a colored block behind, in fact, let's just borrow this colored block for the time being. If I place the color block behind this face, send it to the back, you can now see that face is cropped as a ball, as a circle. The other thing that Andonella wanted to do was to change the color. So what we can do is we can go to picture format and color. If we select more variations down here and then go across to the eyedropper tool, and this is the color that you wanted to change it to, if I click on that, it doesn't really work very well. So I'm going to undo that, and I've found a color that does work better. So I'm going to go to color, more variations, and it's kind of light pink color, which makes it look closer to the brand color. Okay, so once you've isolated that face, you can then animate it. So that's one way of doing it. But what I thought actually would be easier is to actually recreate the faces from scratch as graphics, because then you can actually resize these graphics to whatever size you want. Because if you resize these graphics, you'll see that when they get bigger, they get very ropey, a bit out of focus. Okay, so I've reproduced these, and let me just show you quickly how I did that. I'm going to go into, in fact, let me just duplicate that slide. Okay, but I'm going to ungroup this shape, this graphic. So you've got an outside circle in the dark purple. There's an inside ellipse with the graduated color on it, which is, you can do that quite easily in PowerPoint. And the reason I did that separately is because it can kind of be, you can kind of move it about within the top circle to get the grading in exactly the place you want it. Then you've got two small circles there, which are grouped together, the two eyes. And this shape here, if I go up to here, you can see there are various shapes you can do in PowerPoint. And the shape that I used, if I can just scan down and find it, there it is there, that shape there. So that shape there, and hold the shift key down. And you can, by using these little yellow handles, you can change the width of that. You can then rotate it, hold the shift key down so the rotation goes in 30-degree increments. And of course you can color it in white and take the outline off of it. And then you've got this mouth. Let's delete that slide now. So I created the two faces from scratch. And then what I did is I produced a slide, which will go on to slide number 3. You've got these three faces down here, which are the neutral faces, and the smiling face off to the left of the screen. And this is the face we want to animate. If I go to my animations pane, you can see that I've used some animations here on the right hand side. You can see they're motion path animations. You can see from this dotted line where this ball is going to bounce. And if I play it in here, you'll see it bounces in This is exactly the effect that Andonella wanted to achieve. So how is that done? So let's just duplicate that slide. Go back to this, and I'm going to remove those two animations and do it from scratch, or kind of do it from scratch. So if we go to our animations up here, you can see that you've got green ones, you've got yellow ones, you've got red ones. The green ones are entrance animations, the yellow ones are emphasis animations, and the red ones are exit animations. But underneath, you'll see you've got motion paths, and you can do lines and arcs and turns and shapes and loops and a custom path. However, if you look further down, you've got more motion paths. And when you go to more motion paths, you can see that there are bounce left and bounce right animations. Brilliant. So you don't have to do it yourself. So you can click the bounce right animation and it comes in. And you can see from the motion path, there it is there. Now, obviously, we want to stretch that out. So we want to pull it right over there. Maybe we want to pull it right down there so it bounces at the bottom in line with the other faces. And if we then play that, it'll bounce in and it'll do that. Now, obviously, what we wanted was for this to bounce back up again. So what you can do with a motion path, and I'm not going to go through this in great detail now, but you can actually edit the motion path. If I right click on the path, you can edit the points, which means that you can delete points. So it's a bit onerous, to be honest, because you have to do them one by one. But if I zoom into 400%, I can go into each point and right click on it and delete point, and I can do that for all those points. And this is what I did in the final version. So if I go to the final version here and zoom out, I created two animations, and the first one is just the bounce right animation with loads of points deleted, leaving just two arcs. So one arc here on the left, and then next arc next to it here on the right. If I move it out of the way, you can see what I mean. It's just two bounces. And then the next animation, and you can see from the animation pane up here that you've got these two animations, follows directly after the first animation, and I've reversed it, and you've got these two arcs again going from left to right.
And how did you reverse it, David?
You can, okay, so reverse tip easily just by dragging these handles across like this.
Okay.
So it's really easy to do. You just have to duplicate the animation and drag the handles across. And you'll see on the right-hand side that I've set it, the first animation to happen on click, and the second animation to happen up, as you can see up here, after previous. So it follows on after the previous animation. And I've set them as a duration of 2 seconds each. So when we play this in screen show mode, or slideshow mode, should I say, click the mouse, it bounces in, and it bounces up into position, which is kind of the effect that Andonella wanted to achieve. So let me just stop sharing. Does that make sense, Andonella?
It does. So the question that I have here is, how would you show the lines to show the bounce path that it's taking?
Okay, so I wasn't expecting that question. I had to think about it for a few seconds and then come up with a simplified answer. If I show you what I mean is a simple animation, I'm just going to do a simple animation. I'm going to delete the animations that are currently on this slide and delete those, and just bring my little man onto the slide. Let's say we had a simple motion path going from left to right. So I'm going to go to animations, motion paths, and I'm going to do a simple line motion path, and I'm going to take it from left to right, something like that. And so when I play it, you'll see it goes across the slide like that. Now, if you wanted a dotted line to be traced behind that, what I would do is I'd go to the home, and I would then draw a line going from, say, there to there. Let's make that line thick, make it nice and thick so we can see it. And let's make the line dotted. So we can go in, make it a dotted line or a dashed line on there, for example, and we will send it to the back. And then what I would do is I would do a wipe animation, wiping from left, and do it at the same speed as so the speed of the motion path is 2 seconds. So the wipe also needs to be 2 seconds. and I would then make sure that second animation happened with the previous animation. So now, in theory, if I play that animation, okay, it was probably slightly ahead of itself, actually. It didn't quite work. I'm going to take it down to 1.75 and then play it again. Still seems to be slightly ahead of itself. So what I would probably do with that, actually, on the straight line, I'd make it 2 seconds, and I'd give it a delay of, let's give it a delay of 1/4 of a second, and then play that and see what happens. Oh, that works better, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing in principle. But obviously, what you'd have to do on this one is you'd have to draw a series of curved lines and do the same thing with those. Probably best to group them together, and then you would wipe those from the left and just play about with the speed and the duration and the delay to get them working right. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah, it does make sense. And another question that I'd like to ask you, David, on the purple face where you've got the gradient bit, how did you get the gradient part of the circle?
Okay, let's go back to PowerPoint. So to do a gradient in PowerPoint is very straightforward. Let me duplicate that. So, okay, so let me just ungroup that, and you'll see that if I take that gradient there, if I right click on it and go to Format Shape, you'll see that under Fill, you've got a choice of No Fill, Solid Fill, Gradient Fill, and other options there as well. So the gradient fill in this case, as you can see down here, is 2 colors. You've got this light purple color in the middle and the dark purple color on the outside. And I've set it as a radial gradient, meaning it goes out from the center. So I can change it to a linear gradient like that. You can do a rectangular gradient. You can do a path gradient. So a radial gradient, and you can put as many colors in as you want. So if I wanted to put another color in, I could click a color there and then make it, I don't know, yellow. And you've got this kind of thing going on like that then. And you can change the position of the gradient. You can change the transparency, and you can change the brightness as well. So that makes it nice and bright. And it's as simple as that. And you can do that on any shape in PowerPoint.
Great, you make it look really easy, David.
Well, these things are always easy when you know how to do it. That's probably the truth with any bit of software, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you.
So has that helped, Andonella? Has that helped to answer your questions?
Yes, I'll be watching that several times over, no doubt, to learn how to do it. But that's great. Thanks.
No problem at all, and nice to see you again.
Thank you.